I got this really hideous coffee cup from Walmart. It was legitimately $1, and I don't know why I'm telling you this, but it is quite possibly one of the best purchases I've ever made. Seriously, it's 10 out of 10. If you think women are gonna talk to you before you buy this fucking cup, just wait till after. Nobody will look in your direction because you're fucking weird. Hey, be a squid and subscribe to my mediocrity. Oh boy, we're back at it again with the face cam video. So today I wanted to talk about the Bleeding Edge, which beta just passed this previous weekend, which was pretty fun. I played a lot of it, and to say that I'm excited for this game is probably an understatement. Ever since Steven told me about this game and I'd done some research, looked into it, characters and stuff, all that nonsense, I've been pretty invested into the game, and finally having hands-on experience, I can say I'm unhappy. Let me be perfectly clear. This is a good game. The combat is smooth, the movement is fantastic, the characters are, characters in a video game. That sounds bad, but what I specifically mean when I say that is they're nothing, I guess, objectively original or even remotely unique. You've got Fat Lucio, you've got even fatter Roadhog with saw blades. You've got essentially fucking what Junkrat Diva. I mean, the list goes on. This seems to be the template for competitive objective type games where they're trying to replicate Overwatch, Paladins, and so on and so on. And this just seems to be the copy paste garbage that most games are going to implement, where you're gonna get characters that do a lot of the same thing. You're gonna get the character with the hook. You're gonna get the character with the moving heel. You're gonna get the character with the shield. You're gonna, these things that just are a part of the game, and we just have to come to accept the fact that there is no originality in video games anymore. Oh, and how could I forget my boy, Ghetto Genji? He looks fucking ridiculous. You know, every single weeb on planet Earth, that is going to be their main, 100%. And I'm gonna tell you right now, he's actually ass. No, not ass. Ass. Because he's fucking terrible. He's not like the worst in the game, but he's definitely on the lower tiered section of the game. He's not fantastic. Gets locked down pretty easily. His only escape is going invisible and never going back in because nobody knows how to heal in general, so you're going to be sitting there running around taking all the health pots like most Genjis do anyway, because
I need healing.
And the concept for the matches aren't exactly original either. It's go to point A, defend until you can't defend anymore, collect X amount of whatever points, deposit them into point whatever, and then push the payload. Well, that one specifically is actually not in this game, surprisingly. I'm surprised there's not a push the payload option because, man, I really was expecting that to be a gem in this one. But I mean, defending a point and then going to another point is just capture A, B, and C. It's basically like, makeshift melee Call of Duty domination. And then you've also got collect certain cores, and then you go to point A, B, or C, deposit those cores into there, and then that is essentially the game, and whoever hoards the most points wins the game, which is relatively one-sided majority of the times, which, it's the beta. People don't necessarily understand the game yet, and I'm hoping when it releases, there's going to be a lot more variety and players that are going to step it up and actually have an understanding as to what the fuck they're supposed to be doing, because believe me, this beta made me feel like that there was no hope at all, that everyone is just a moron. And I guess I'm not necessarily hating on this template or anything like that, but I do have to say that it just kind of feels like, it's saturated now, you know what I mean? It's starting to be that battle royale phenomenon where the game and the game type is fucking saturated, and if I see another one, I just want to die. Now, with all that being said, I will say the core mechanics are fine. Like I said, the movement is pretty smooth, the combat's nice and everything. I don't really have any complaints. There was no bugs or glitches that I experienced in the beta whatsoever. It seemed relatively polished in terms of just, actual playtime and mechanics, but what I will say needs work is the balancing department. It definitely feels like they had the rulebook right here and just said, because it's not cash money. There are characters that are tanks that do 1,000,000 damage and have no hit stun and never die. There are characters that are healers that do 1,000,000 damage and never die. There are characters that have mobility options when they shouldn't have mobility options because they do too much damage and never die. You see this trend where they never die. This is going to be a huge, and I mean a huge problem, because the game is very mobility heavy. Almost every single character has a dash option, which, you know, it's whenever you get locked down in melee combat. Most characters have hit stun, so the only way to get out of that is to, you know, press the right trigger, whatever console you're on, or PC, then you dash left, right, back, forward, doesn't really matter, but that's the only way to get out of the combo. And most characters have at least 1 to 2 to 3 dashes, and most of the time it's whatever, you know, you can dash out of it and then they run away. That seems to be the fucking strategy here. Everyone just runs away, and I mean that everyone runs away. If you watched my previous video, you will see this constantly where people are running away all the time. This is what I like to call the bitch ass bitch syndrome, where nobody wants to fight. If the game is already a wash or they start losing even the slightest, everyone never does anything and they just run away all the time. They go in, they think they can fight someone, and then they realize, oh, this is a bad idea, and then they just run away. Kill doesn't happen, and then the game just turns into just this boring stalemate of, I'm gonna stand on this point, wait for you to come to me, you never come to me, and therefore I didn't really play the game. I just was basically playing Standing Simulator. There are certain characters that I genuinely believe don't need a mobility option because they do a lot of damage. Let's take Gizmo for an instance. She is a kind of range DPS type character. She puts down turrets and she can have up to, I don't know how many on the field, at least 3 or 4, maybe even more, I have no idea. Anyway, the point being is that her turrets do a shit ton of damage, and Gizmo herself, she can dash around the map. You know, she's got, I believe, 2 dashes, and that's not necessarily as much as some of the other DPS or whatever, but the fact that she has 2 dashes makes it incredibly easy for her to just kite around enemies and do 1,000,000 damage. All she has to do, essentially, is stop shooting herself. All her damage comes from the turrets, so if you don't focus the turrets down, then she just gets to kite you around and you're just gonna die eventually because the turrets do 1,000,000 damage. Now, you could say that's on the person that is, you know, being an idiot and not killing the turrets, but my point being is that she doesn't need mobility options whenever she does that much damage. She can post up in a severely high advantage point, post up 2 turrets where it's kind of difficult to deal with, so you either have to sacrifice a team member from the fight to go deal with her, or she's just going to rain complete hell from above and destroy you. Not to mention, she gets a mech, which is one of her ultimates, and her other one is just, I ride a rocket and it does 1,000,000 damage, but it doesn't instantly kill someone, so what's the point? You're always going to bring the mech, because the mech is good for team fighting and also survivability purposes. Every Gizmo player is going to do this strategy where they're going to DPS till they get extremely low, and then once they're really low, they're going to pop their ultimate because they get a huge shield, and therefore they get to survive and do a bunch of damage, and everyone's going to run away back to that problem. So it just seems like she is very well equipped for almost every situation. She can kite, she can do damage, she can camp, she can do it all, and she probably needs to be toned down quite a bit for it to be somewhat balanced. Oh yeah, I also forgot to mention, she has a grenade that pulls people in, so she has a form of CC. Just thought I should point that out. Now, the 2 healers that I want to specifically mention is Snake Boy and African Bombada Lady Miko. These 2 healers are goddamn bananas. Snake Boy has an ability that curses an enemy and they do a shit ton of damage. Like the enemy doesn't do a lot of damage, but they can take a lot of damage. So you curse them and your whole team focuses that cursed person and they're fucking dead. You do this every single time on a healer and a healer will be dead within seconds. I'm not saying this is a bad ability, but I'm saying that Snake Boy can solo tanks, DPS, and other healers with this ability. It is insane. Snake Boy does a lot of damage. In my previous video, I even showcased that I had 28 kills and like 14,000 damage. That is as much as a broken Gizmo. No healer should ever be able to have that many kills as well as do that much damage by themselves. It is crazy. Now, where the trade-off is, he doesn't necessarily heal for as much, but he provides a sustainable amount of shields. You can pop shield like boom, 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 and nobody's ever dying. It doesn't ever matter. Pop shield, throw heal, you're healing up while they're tanking damage from the shield. So essentially nobody's ever dying, and you're cursing the enemy, and then people are dropping left and right. You're doing a million damage. You also have 2 dashes, which means you yourself can kite effectively. So unless the whole team dives you, pretty much Snake Boy's never gonna die. Now Miko, I think she's a bit better balanced in my personal opinion, but overall I still think she's pretty fucking crazy. She heals for an insane amount of just healing ability. She has, I believe, 2 or 3 dashes as well, so she's pretty mobile. Not to mention she's got combos, and she has a shield that she can deploy, which essentially is just a bubble shield that, you know, protects from projectiles and so on, and that's great and everything. She counters Gizmo to a certain degree, but that shield, I will say, is kind of weak and it gets broken relatively easily, so I think the shield definitely needs a buff. But her heal is an insane heal. She can run, like, there could be 3 people attacking her and she can heal through those 3 people and run away effectively. She is one of the slipperiest bitches on planet Earth, and I just I definitely feel like her heal needs to be toned down just a tad bit. I still want her to be a like heavy healer, but I think she does a little too much healing. If you have, like the meta, at least how it felt when I was playing, if you run 2 heals, a good sustainable tank, it just seems to be broken. If you run Snake Boy and Miko, pretty much no one's ever gonna die. You've got Miko that is locking down the singular heals, and then you have Snake Boy, which is essentially running AoE heals as well as debuffing the enemy and doing a million damage himself. These 2 combined are really disgusting, and they do a lot of damage. I can almost guarantee you there's going to be a double tank or a double heal meta for sure, 100%, just because of how broken these 2 are. Zero Cool is a weak healer in my personal opinion. He sits on one singular person and then throws walls to run away. That's his whole thing, and comparatively to what the other 2 are capable of, there is zero reason to play Zero Cool. And I'd also like to take a moment to talk about El Bastardo, because I think he's one of the craziest fucking tanks I've ever seen in any video game. This man has no hit stun on basically anything. Like if any DPS runs up on him, he's not getting hit stun by anything. You press the B button and then everybody, he's Hulk mode. He doesn't die. Not to mention, he does a million damage. You press the Y button or whatever his spin to win move is, and you just start shredding everyone. And not to mention, one of his ultimates, he has basically a Tryndamere ult where he doesn't die for a certain period of time, which is, what in my personal opinion, the shittier version of his ults. But the other one, he has this kind of electrical radius around him which does damage constantly throughout the entire ult, which is really good. Now you pair this with Snake Boy ult and you have an insane damage dealer tank that never dies. El Bastardo, I think, is fine just with his abilities and the way he plays, but I think his damage needs to be toned down just a bit because he does way too much for being a tank. Plus, he has the ability to chase people down, and on top of that, he does a lot of damage. So yeah, I mean, being tanky, having the ability to chase as well as damage, it just doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't seem fucking fair. And probably the final and biggest problem this game is going to suffer from is everybody wants to play DPS. I noticed this the entire time we played the beta, and everyone just wants to play DPS. I don't know how most game development companies or whatever, they haven't seen this trend where, you know, you look at Overwatch, you look at Paladins, and even to this very day, you still have people that will never switch off of DPS just to heal, to tank. We could already have the maximum amount of meta DPS, whether that being 1 or 2, and if that's the case, okay, we don't need a third one. But somebody, and it could be even some bodies, could pick 2 more DPS, and it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It really doesn't. And next thing you know, you're playing a Bleeding Edge with 4 DPS in a game and you're losing because nobody's tanking or healing, and it's bizarre. There seems to be this template where every competitive objective type game comes out and there's roughly about 6 or 7 DPS, and then there's like 2 or 3 healers and tanks. I just put an equal amount of tanks and healers in as well, so that way at least there's variety. I can understand why people sometimes don't want to play a tank, because maybe they've played tank role like 4 times, and then, you know, some guy picks, or there's 2 people that pick DPS, so we don't need another one. But you're like, I'm not playing tank, I'm not playing healer, I want a DPS, so I'm gonna play DPS. I understand that. So I don't know. I don't really know what to do about this, but this is going to be a problem, and it's not a bleeding edge problem. This is a player habit that just happens all the time, that's going to just engulf bleeding edge for the first few months until they start adding new characters. I just wish there was a variety of tanks and healers, so maybe there's some motivation to switch off of DPS. I don't know. This is like a weird complaint, but I foresee this happening, and it's happened in the beta, so I figured I'd just throw it out there. Anyway, I think that's enough just criticisms and whatnot. I just wanted to get this video out there to kind of just throw my opinions and stuff. I could be completely wrong. People are happy about the game. These are just things that I feel are a bit on the rough side of things, but it is what it is. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, this game is bad by all degrees. This is just my opinion and how I feel currently right now. So with that being said, it's just balancing realistically. I'm just going to go ahead and leave it at that. So yeah, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.